Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology, the coronavirus, and the negativity of others. What I want to basically talk about, I believe strongly that this thing going on with this coronavirus pandemic has made people, on average, collectively, maybe a little bit more cynical and more negative. And I would talk about some reasons behind this. Now, the thing about this, we look at people that have certain charts that are a little bit astrology charts that may be a little bit more negative, more pessimistic. I actually have one of them. The thing is, like, say if you have an astrology chart that has majority of your planets below the horizon and/or preponderance of major astrological influences in feminine signs, the negative signs. And when I'm talking about major astrological influences, of course, I'm referring to the 10 planets, 10 astrological planets, and the ascendant and midheaven. And the thing about this is, if you're already somebody that has some propensity toward negativity, I mean, admittedly, I do. Largely, again, most of my planets are below the horizon. 8 of my 10 planets are in houses 1 through 6, and I have Saturn in the 12th house. I'm very, close to reclusive. I have very introspective, very introverted. I don't always have the best optimism and feelings of self-esteem and what have you. And the thing about this is, and then the other planet I want to say above the horizon is Neptune in the 7th, and that could indicate a dissolving and dissipation of relationships in some cases. So I really don't have a lot of people in my life. I have a lot of reason to be negative in this. I think what it is, it's exacerbated for many by this coronavirus, because what's happening as a result, more people are confined to their homes. There are certain stipulations and restrictions people have to adhere to, and when they can't come out as much, there's less likelihood. I mean, there's less propensity, of course, for socializing with others. And the thing about it is, if you're already somebody that's kind of an introverted person, your chart is indicative of that. You likely are an introverted person, and the thing is, and you're now a situation is such where you're under even greater restrictions in terms of actually having an ability to socialize due to all the social distancing that is taking place right now for many countries. And when you're at home, more in isolation, what that does is, unfortunately, it gives people more opportunity to ruminate, to lament over their negative elements and aspects that are going on in life, the things that they don't have. A lot of times we could become indignant and look at what this other person has, and I wish I had this. And we see we're on Facebook more and more, and on average, I would say on social media, we see a lot of people that are prosperous and affluent. They have all these riches, and we just wish that we maybe had them more. I think that does happen in a lot of instances. And I've noticed too, at least for me, and it might just be me, I'm not speaking for everybody, or some people, I think what's happened is you're having this social distancing thing in effect for many people. It's almost like people are maybe becoming more distant on social media. I mean, you can't get a virus, of course, through the computer, so it almost seems like it's carrying over for some people, and people are becoming more distant. I've even seemed like I've had less communication since this, on average, of people since this pandemic became very strong and became more prominent. What I want to talk about is, it's the fact that we really need to start, maybe focusing more on the positive, the fact that most of us do have our subsistence, our survival needs. We are alive. I had somebody one time, it was, I saw a post on Facebook one time, and it had a sticker that stated something like, well, a person that truly loves you will correspond or communicate with you even if they're feeling down or blue, or what have you. See, it's the things like when someone puts something like that that to me, I mean, I take it that they're intimating that maybe they know somebody that is distancing themselves, or they're not communicating when that person thinks he or she needed to do so. The thing about it is we have to understand too, there's also other ways of looking at that when somebody is sometimes I think a lot of this has caused this coronavirus is because people become more despondent. Many people may not feel that they're in that right frame of mind to be communicating. Sometimes I don't even feel that way. I wish I did have more communications in my life, but at the same time, I have not really felt very exuberant or enthusiastic regarding communicating at this point in time with others. Now, another thing too is that these things I think can have more propensity to bother others at night, because at night, of course, we're going to be a little bit more agitated on average. We tend to see the darker side of things. I think on average when it becomes darker, our temperament is a little bit more melancholy, a little bit more sorrowful, more sad than it is on average. And the thing about it is you could even have even adverse aspects in your chart may be a little more intensified. If you have certain things, like say for example, if you have Venus making an adverse aspect to your natal Saturn in your chart, might be somebody that has certain restrictions in your relationships, or maybe forming relationships might be an arduous task. There might have been some disappointments in love. Maybe you're not married, or you've had difficulty finding that significant other. I have Venus squaring my Saturn, my natal chart, and I'm not married, and I don't know if I'll ever will be. It's been years, honestly, since I've had a relationship. I think what happens is at the nighttime, you have this extra confinement, you have the nighttime, you put that in a blender. It's really just not a good thing for people to have to deal with. Now, another thing, what I wanted to talk about too, is that people that have more gregarious or extroverted charts are certainly not immune to feeling down or exasperated. They're not impervious to negative energy, whether it can be through transits or progressions. But even that out of the way, the fact alone, if somebody has a very outgoing extroverted chart and they're dealing with these more, I'd say they have the majority of their planets above the horizon, and they got most of their major astrological influences and masculine signs, they might be somebody that's more accustomed to being more outgoing, more sociable, more gregarious and extroverted. But because of the stipulations, because of restrictions for socializing, these people might become incensed because they don't have that ability anymore. And what happens is, I think, again, this all ties into when you're at home and you don't have a lot going on, and there's not really as much activity in your life or what have you, there is that tendency, unfortunately, to focus on the negative of others. And I think what's important is we need to try to home in on and put our attention more on the positive attributes in others. Look at what people have done. There's been people at times that would be irritated at me, for example, due to my response time, that I don't get back with them right away or what have you. And the thing about it is, a lot of those people I may have actually helped astrologically, and I gave them basically gave my time and tried to help them out, and didn't ask for anything really in return. The thing about it is, we need to home in more on the positive of things right now. We really need to do that more, perhaps more so than ever, because of all the negativity that is going on as a result of this coronavirus. Somebody had I saw something, it was on a Twitter feed, and they were talking about how people were putting a lot of these derogatory tweets about others that were at a lower stature of life and looking down on people. And really, I mean, that's something that doesn't need to be done either. We need to look at the good in others. Shouldn't be judged by our stature in life, how much money we have. It's about our spirit. It's about our heart, what we have inside. It's not about the outside people. This is a time, again, this all goes back to the fact that when we don't have as much activity going on, we focus on things that are a little bit more minuscule, things that really don't have much significance in life. And the thing is, I think a lot of it is attributed to people becoming bored. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that. I'm back. But and the thing about it is too, what I would like to say is that if you're you're in this situation like many and you're homebound due to this coronavirus situation going on, it's important to be positive toward others. It's no need to, if you have friends or acquaintances, say derogatory things about them if it's not necessary. Try to look at the good in things. I mean, I don't have a lot going for me right now, but I'm not gonna just, I mean, I'm by myself. I'm almost 50 years old. I felt very alone and desolate for sometimes. I might even die alone, and I have to understand and accept certain things in life. Somebody had said something about it's not about, I saw some sticker one time when someone had something about it's not about the cards that are dealt with, it's what you do with them. Well, you know what? That doesn't always apply to everybody, because what it is I didn't ask to have irrevocable nerve damage to my arms out. I didn't ask to have a lot of physical restrictions and hindrances to in my life. And when you have those things, there are a lot of things you can't do. There's differences between excuses and legitimate reasons. Yes, the general statement is true. It's about how we deal with the cards. How are we going to work with the cards that we're dealt with? But the thing about it is, we don't always have those cards to really work with. That you really need to make those things happen and make a better life for yourself. But that being said, the thing also is, and again, when you hear like when all the negativity, it does add insult to abject misery. And another thing too is, let's take somebody that's got a chart that has placements that have more proclivity for depression. If you have strong Capricorn energy, especially very afflicted, you could be, I mean, somebody even with Mercury in Capricorn retrograde might be, where they need to guard against becoming too despondent or too dejected or feeling melancholy, and they might be constantly going back in time and thinking about the negative things that have happened and causing more despondency. And especially, again, if they have this energy that's very afflicted in their chart, such as a lot of adverse aspects to it. I mean, even I got Saturn in my 12th house, and there's times when I have felt, I mean, I have it conjunct my ascendant, so I do project a lot of to people, a lot of times very kind of dejected or very sad and very serious outer demeanor, blending in with my Taurus ascendant. Of course, and the thing about it is too, or if somebody's got Saturn in their third house, it could be somebody that could be, that might succumb to depression in some cases, or at least where their thinking is dominated by sadness. Sadly enough, it could. Those are some ways that could manifest in panic. But anyway, a thing too is, and a lot of it, say if somebody has transit Neptune, make it a conjunction to their natal Saturn at this time, and it could be somebody that's feeling very alone and desolate and isolated, and it might be causing a lot of sadness, and a lot of it, again, the fact that Neptune's in Pisces right now could be connected with the disease that can't be eradicated, and because, of course, Neptune is connected with diseases, and Pisces can be associated with ones that can't be eradicated. They don't have a cure for. But what I wanted to close with is that people, it's imperative to try to be as positive as you can. May try to put encouraging energy as far as your posts go on social media. Bringing people down right now is not the answer. If you're angry at some things about yourself, there's no need to be insulting others unnecessarily, because it's not going to accomplish anything or really change. It's not going to change anything in your own life at this time. And certainly, I mean, if I was to start putting up negative things about people, that's obviously not going to change anything in my life, I have a lot of things, negative things that have happened. People have inexplicably, stopped communicating with me. I don't understand why a lot of things, transpire, take place. Sometimes God is the only one that leads me. And I'm an unbeliever. I have to respect those that don't believe that. But God, but for me, I believe in God, and I do believe there are reasons that happen and things to people in life, and we don't always understand why that is. Sometimes it just may be challenges that are presented to us. So anyway, and the thing about it is, if you need something to take to help elevate your spirits, if there's some vitamins or minerals or nutrients, sometimes having some, good old-fashioned coffee could help a little, but they may not alleviate the the problem. It might help the symptoms a little bit. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying today, well.